Frederick Advice Givers, episode 166. To my right today is Julie Gaver with Julie Gaver Discovery, formerly Julie Gaver Training and Development, correct?
Absolutely, yes, correct.
So, funny story. This will be released just after the New Year's, so we were recording this right around Christmas time. My in-laws are up for Christmas for a holiday party, and my in-law, mother-in-law, Linda Sacchetti, talking to her this morning, she's like, "What are you doing today?" "Well, I'm going to interview Julie Gaver." And so she knows you from a former life. And we, in our pre-interview, we had many mutual friends in common, acquaintances, but we've never actually formally met. So I appreciate you coming on Advice Givers today.
It's nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm honored. Thank you.
So how do you know Linda?
Well, I don't know. I'm trying to remember when you said that. I feel like I've known her for a really long time, and we connected again through Facebook.
Okay.
It's probably through the teaching arena, I would imagine.
Yeah, she was in education for many, many years, along with my father-in-law, Lou Sacchetti.
Yeah, and I've done lots of work in the school systems, and so probably originally there.
Awesome.
But yeah, she's a class act.
Awesome.
You're a lucky man.
Thank
to
you.
Be in that family.
I'm thankful every day.
Good.
So, for our listeners and viewers that don't know you, give us your backstory, your origin story, who you are.
Okay. I'm born and raised in Frederick County. I'm a Middletown girl and went to Middletown High School, married my high school sweetheart.
Good for you.
So we've been together for 44 years. We've been married for 39 years. Okay. So we have that kind of history. Our parents lived in the area. We went to Frostburg to college and then came back and established our roots here. So very proud of that. Seen a lot of changes in Frederick over the years, but decided I wanted to keep a business here. We wanted to raise our family here, and so Frederick County has always been our home.
So tell us about your business and what you do, and then more specifically, is your business located just here in Frederick? Do you serve people nationwide, internationally?
Okay, good question. So this fall, I celebrated 21 years of having my own business, Julie Gaver Training and Development. Prior to that, I was employed as a Dale Carnegie instructor. And that's,
oh, were you really?
Yes. That's, yeah, love Dale Carnegie. Big advocate of, telling people to take the class.
Right.
So that's how I got into the training business. I was scared to death of speaking in front of a group. And my boss at the time said, "You should take this class. It would really help you." And it unleashed a beast. So I ended up working for them for about 7 years and was working full-time in Frederick as a marketing and PR director for an accounting firm, having a little bit of a kind of a midlife crisis, trying to figure out who I was, what I wanted to do with my life, and took a year off, a year sabbatical. So I couldn't work for them full time. So that's how the training business started. So 21 years. I work a lot in Frederick and Washington County, but I do Baltimore County, a lot anywhere in the state of Maryland. Years ago, I traveled a good bit. I was definitely a national speaker. I had clients all along the East Coast, did some work out west if it was a conference kind of thing.
So who's your ideal client?
Right now or years ago?
Let's talk about now.
Right now, my ideal client is someone that's fairly local, and by local I mean that I don't have to stay overnight, who has a sincere desire to improve their work situation. My ideal client is one that's not just walking the talk and bringing a trainer in, but truly wants to change the culture of the organization. So that's my emphasis.
Okay, so this is organizational level, not individual level?
No, organizational level. Yeah, I work primarily with businesses. Most of the time they're small, a lot of closely held businesses who want to develop their managers and really give them the tools and the tips and the strategies that they need for the human side of business as opposed to the technical. I focus on culture and employee engagement and what leaders really need to do to have employees that really want to come to work and feel that kind of burning desire to be part of the group.
So how long do you typically work with an organization?
It varies.
Is it a one-time training?
It can vary.
Okay.
So some of my work, like last week, for example, I was with an insurance agency that was doing an all-staff meeting, and they wanted a keynote So I came in, did an hour presentation on, they wanted to do something on customer service.
Okay.
They're taking it to the next level. The week before, perhaps I was with a nonprofit who started a leadership development program. So I will come in once a month for, say, 5 months,
Okay.
focusing on a different aspect of leadership. I love those kinds of jobs because I get to develop the relationships with the staff. Because you're coming back each month. We're talking about things that are kind of personal, related to how you work with people, and so I get to develop the relationships with them, get to know what their strengths are, customize the sessions based on what I know about the organization. So those are my favorite.
Okay.
But the ideal client is definitely the one who wants to do it because they know it's best for the company and the right thing to do, and not just because, oh, let's check off we provided training.
And it doesn't have to be industry specific.
No,
Okay.
no. And that's one of the things I love most about it is I'm not always with the same kind of company. So it could be nonprofit, I can be with teachers, I can be with insurance agents. I'm doing something for the Women's Council of Realtors
Okay. Awesome.
in February. Work with construction. So yeah, keeps me from getting bored.
I bet it does. I mean, you're going in with different mindsets, different individuals, different managing styles, different size companies.
Right.
So, I mean, like what I do on a day-to-day basis, like no 2 days of mine are the same.
And that's the best.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take this back on a more personal level.
Okay.
What's the last purchase that you splurged on for yourself or your family?
Okay. Well, the most obvious one is where we are
Mm-hmm.
today. So just give you a little background. So my husband and I lived on Main Street in Myersville for 37 years, and very close-knit family. His family lived here.
Okay. Where
This-
you are now?
Yeah, this was his grandfather's farm and property, and then ultimately became his parents'.
Okay.
And so they both passed away a few years ago, and so the family was trying to decide what to do with the property. We inherited the acreage. And so we decided to move into this house, and we gutted it. Took over a year to transform this little Cape Cod into something that was livable for us. And so, I've always been a home-based business.
Right.
And so before I had an office in our
Mhm.
home. But moving up here, and you probably felt it when you were driving up here, it's just
Peaceful. You're driving up next to
Yeah.
Middle Creek.
This is Middle Creek.
You're driving up next to Middle Creek. Yeah, it's
and
beautiful.
it's like heaven on earth. And it's a shame that we're here right now in December because the summer and
Right.
the fall is beautiful. But it has this just cathartic, very peaceful feeling. And so when I started thinking about, my business up here again, I thought I want to create some space where people can come to me. Because over the past years, it's always been I go to the client.
Right. And you've got a beautiful location out here. You've got a pavilion out
We
back,
built
right?
a pavilion. I had many meetings under the pavilion this summer. In fact, I had a group here once. We were doing a brainstorming for an all-staff meeting.
Okay.
And we finished the meeting. And so I was like, okay, well, that's it. And they're all like, we don't
We
want
don't
to
wanna leave.
go. So it has that feeling. So I'm looking forward to kind of continuing that.
And you
sort of-
purchased how long ago?
Well,
Or
we've been
when did you
here
move
a
in?
year. We moved in last year.
Okay.
But it took a year to do the renovations, and then once we moved in, we started all the outbuildings on the property. So it's been a labor of love,
Awesome.
work in progress, and I love that kind of creative, change things up. So it was perfect for us.
So, Julie, what hobby or interest? I know that we're both business owners and entrepreneurs, and we spend a large portion of our lives developing personally, developing professionally. But what hobby or interest are peaceful to you that you do in your spare time?
Okay, that's a good question. So we're alike, as you said, in that we're out in the public, we're out meeting with people all the time, and so the things that fill me up and kind of give me those moments of grace are the times that I spend alone. And so I'm a gardener.
Oh, awesome.
Always been a gardener. Love gardening. It's therapeutic. Gardening is symbolic for so much about life, and so at our other home, I had very elaborate gardens. We were on a home and garden tour a number of years ago, and so when we moved up here, there was nothing here as far as that. So I've begun the process of kind of starting all over again, which is exciting and scary at the same time, but to have a blank slate,
Mm-hmm.
to walk onto a property where there's not a flower bed at all and start thinking about what could this look like.
Right.
That's what really gives me a sense of peace. And there's something about hands in the dirt
Right.
and just being free to think and pray and just, you know, think about life. It's what grounds me.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So, when you wake up in the morning, being an entrepreneur, being a successful entrepreneur, you know, there's the ones that start for a few years and then they don't make it.
Right.
The ones that I think are successful and have a long-term ongoing businesses and multiple businesses, they have an internal drive, an internal mechanism that keeps them moving forward. And it could have been something that happened in your childhood or just your overall personality and drive. So what's that why? What's that drive inside of you that keeps you going, Julie?
Well, one of the whys is that I'm kind of ADD. I like so many different things. And when I get to a point where it's become routine, if you know me, chances are good there's a change coming.
Right.
And so in the morning when I think about, you know, what's on the agenda, one of the criteria is it always has to be new and different. And so that's why I like the training work that I do, but that's why I created a lot of these other things that we talked about earlier. I love the creative process. I love getting up in the morning and knowing that my work and my life has been kind of customized in such a way that I can have both of them. And I learned that pretty early on, you know, that you don't just have to have a job that you have to force feed your family life and your other life into this 9-to-5 scenario. I love the flexibility of being able to create what each week looks like.
So would you say like new challenges?
Yeah, very much new challenges, the creative process, the not knowing what's coming, which scares a lot of people, but I love not knowing what's coming. And when I get to a point, as I said, where it's predictable, it's time to shake things up a little bit.
So when you were going from your Dale Carnegie training to opening your own consulting,
right?
Basically consulting, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
What's a piece of advice or a shortcut that somebody gave you that you would like to pass along?
Well, it sounds so cliche, but the do what you love, and it, you know,
never work a day in your life.
Yeah,
right.
I tell my children that all the time. It's so important that you do what you love, and I can't say you never work another day in your life. You work, and there are days that are bad, and you know they suck royally sometimes. And anytime you have a job where you're very dependent on the human condition and human nature, you can have bad days. But at the end of the day, I think for me, it's knowing that there's a purpose, and that the purpose is I want to elevate people's life. I want to elevate the way they feel about coming to work in the morning. Because some of the companies that I go into, I mean, they'll say things like, only 4 more years till I retire. It's like, oh, just shoot me. I just hate that mentality of, I'm just biding time. It's like, get out, stop it now. And, you know, you don't know when your last day is. So, so do what you love is definitely the big one. And just have courage and have faith in yourself. I do a lot of group work with women. And one of the questions that I often ask was taken from Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In book. And it's, what would you do tomorrow differently if you knew without a doubt you couldn't fail? And so many of the women around the room will say, I would start a business. Right. I'd start a business. I'm like, well, why don't you do it? You know, let's just go ahead and it's okay if you fail. You know, but.
So going to your women's groups.
Yeah, see them?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
give me the backstory on some of these pictures. Like where, you know, we had a common interest in, we've both been to Italy multiple times. So tell us about these groups.
So these
retreats.
Groups happened actually kind of by accident. So in 2009, when the economy was starting to dip.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm well aware of that.
Yep, you're aware. And, you know, 2 of the things that people cut out were marketing and training. And so here I am, a full-time trainer, and, you know, I'm not very busy. And so I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I used to say to my husband, should I go find a real job? And he's like, you have a real job. And I'm like, I know, but one that, you know, has that
steady
security.
Pay
I'm so glad I didn't.
Yeah.
So what I did during those 2 years, I did 2 things. One was I went back and got my master's degree. which
Where?
was time well spent, UMBC,
Okay.
and it was a master's degree in instructional design,
Okay.
which was perfect for what
Okay.
I do. But the second big thing, which created all this, was I wrote a book. And it's called Must Love Shoes.
Okay.
And it's now a series. There's 3 in the series. And it's just, not just, it's a book about life and all of the funny things that happen. It's about the importance of the journey. And so it's written mostly for women, but they're just funny stories, kind of like an Irma Bombeck kind of story.
Okay.
So the first book came out in 2009, and it was very well received because it's their humor.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of them are embarrassing moments, things that have happened to me, like on the stage, hilarious things that have happened, and just how to kind of go with the flow and those things. So the book became very popular, and the next thing I know, people were calling me, women's groups, and saying, "Would you come, speak to our group?" Which is very typical what I do, and I'm like, "Sure. What do you want to talk about?" Thinking, leadership. They're like, "We want you to tell stories from the book." I'm like, "Okay." So I'd go, and it was almost like a stand-up routine. I'd start telling stories, my most embarrassing moments, and we had this connection. So what ended up happening over a period of years is the book created a niche market for me, not just for training and presentations, but then I started thinking more in terms of, I love the energy when I'm working strictly with women. Women are different. They let their guards down. The humor is different. The connections are different. And so always wanted to travel. And so one of the things I thought I wanted to do was, let's take a group of women out of the country and let's study different things. And so I teamed with a local woman, Kelly Beach, who knows Italy like the back of her hand. And we took, on 2 different occasions, we took groups of women, and we're at Rome, but then we spend most of our time in the Lazio region, Tuscany-Lazio region. And our focus is women in business. And so the castle that we stay in is owned and operated by a woman. We go to vineyards that are owned and operated by women. We have lunch with this amazing American woman who is an Italian cookbook writer, and we go to her little villa, and she cooks us lunch, and she has an olive grove.
Okay.
And so then 2 or 3 mornings, we get together as a group, and we, for an hour, talk about how are Italian women different from the way we are in managing work and home. And so there's always a focus of some sort to those retreats. So this past year, I took a group to Ireland with a good friend of mine, Connie, and we focused on the book Anna Karam, which was written by John Donahue. He's a Celtic author. And so we used the book for our discussion, and then during the day we sightsee and we bond as a group. Most of the women don't know each other, but you can't go on a trip and an adventure like that and not come back close friends. And I'm very selective in the type of woman to go on these trips, because it has to be someone who plays well with others and who enjoys the adventure. And so it's been a great experience. So that led to some of the other activities that I do. I do a large charity event that is geared towards women and children as well.
So starting out in business and in your years, what is something that you might look back upon and say, I wish I would have done that different, or I learned from that experience?
Marketing.
Okay.
So my background was marketing and PR. I have no problem promoting other organizations, other people. But when I first started out, it was so hard for me to promote myself. Because, you're raised to be humble, you're raised to not be a bragger, this kind of thing. And so when I became the subject of the promotion, there was a disconnect. It's hard for me. It still is hard for me sometimes. And so I had to learn that I'm the product, and that I had to almost remove myself from I'm promoting myself. I'm promoting what I do. I'm promoting the benefits to the client. And so once I got through that, it became easier. But at the beginning, it was hard. I was like, okay, I know I need to write this press release. Oh, it's so hard to say all these like wonderful things about myself, you know?
Right.
Yeah, it's hard.
So my business is not based on self-promotion or gimmicks or bait and switch or anything like that. So I've kind of coined the three C's: consistent, compelling content.
I love that.
If you can put out consistent, compelling
Yeah.
content to your audience,
Right.
via either the written word, audio, video, like we are today, the business just kind of finds you
Yes.
because people gravitate
Yes.
because of who you are,
Yeah.
what you talk about, your beliefs.
Right.
So I found that's a much more foundational, successful building way to build a business is through the three C's as opposed to look at me, look at me,
Look at me.
look
Yeah,
at me. Right?
yeah, yeah.
So
It's like,
we're in
what's, yeah.
alignment there.
What's the commercial? Was it Planet Fitness? Look at me, looking at you, looking at me.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
that whole.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Julie, in the last 3 years, what's a choice that you've made, either professionally or personally, that's led us and you to where you are today?
Oh, okay. So I'm still very much doing my corporate work, but I'm being more selective in the type of work and the clientele that I work with. And so that frees up some time for me to pursue a lot of other interests related to workshops here. We're in my training room right now. And so this fall, I did a small group training coaching program for 5 women, and it felt really good. It's personal, it's more intimate up here. So I'm going to be doing a lot more programs here as a form of mini retreats, I guess, if you will. There'll be training, there'll be some coaching, and just some other event type experiences that I'm looking forward to building.
Awesome. So Julie, I've had the privilege over the last 3 years, 3.5 years, wow, of sitting across the microphone from 165 other business owners and entrepreneurs.
That's a lot. You should write a book.
We've written 2.
Okay, I need them. Really?
I've brought one for you today.
Yay,
yes.
good.
That's funny. So I get to learn by asking these other successful, sometimes not successful, sometimes ultra successful, but I get to learn from asking questions.
Okay.
So I want to flip the script and have you ask me a question. Now, yes, we have many, many mutual connections, mutual friends.
Yeah.
But we just met 35 minutes ago.
Right.
You know, face to face. We're Facebook friends and stuff like that.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
So, shoot, ask me a question.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question I often ask in my workshops because I'm fascinated by this. And the question is, if you could interview your great-great-great-great-grandparent or your great-great-great-great-grandchild, who would you be more interested in spending time with? In other words, are you more fascinated and curious about
That's a great question.
the past, or are you more fascinated and curious about the future? Which would you choose?
So I'm going to talk for a second while I think this through in my head because that's a very deep question.
Yeah, I'm fascinated with that.
That's a very deep question. I would have to say, I only get to choose one. Wow,
Yeah.
it's not like to get to choose
one
the
or
three.
the other.
It's not like to get to choose the 3 famous people who you want to have.
Have you been asked
dinner
that
with?
question
Oh, yeah.
before? Yeah. This is your family.
I would have to say, going back in history, because I think it's fascinating of the journey, especially with times were different. So you're talking, you said 3 grades or 4 grades, whatever it is. It's just in history or in the future. You're going back 200 years. Okay.
Yeah.
My ancestors on my father's side were from Italy. So around that time, it would have probably been a generation before they came to the U.S.
Okay.
But what was life like then? How did the choices that they made at that time affect the next generation, which was the generation that was bold enough to come to the U.S.?
Come here, right?
It's a much different time, the different era. What was the day-to-day life like? Because it was much less superficial than it is today. They weren't doing interviews like this and driving around in automobiles and having Starbucks for. It was literally about living and surviving.
Yep, and survival. You're right.
Now, it would be also fascinating to see from this point forward where my kids and grandkids and hopefully great grandkids go. But I think going back in history. That's a good question.
You can use it.
That's a very good question. Wow. Cool. So what failure or loss, Julie, has helped mold you into the person you are today? And this could be personal, this could be business, professional.
Well, this is definitely not a failure, but a loss, I guess, would be, and I'm framing a loss in the sense of a loss from what we expected things to be like, is my husband was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2010, and that shook our family to the core. Because there was a certain expectation of what life was going to be like moving forward, and it's been quite different. And so our journey has been a journey of triumph. It's been a journey of frustration and sadness. But it's been a journey that has brought our family really, really close together, and our adult sons, watching them step up to the plate and be such an important part of our family and how we deal with this. And my husband went through deep brain stimulation surgery, and he is doing an amazing job of just living life in the best way that he can, given the situation that we're in right now. And so I admire him so much. I admire watching him get up every day and define what the day is going to look like. But it very much has impacted who we are, and it's impacted a lot of the decisions that I make related to my work. Mm-hmm. And as I alluded to earlier, how I balance work and home and life. Things impact me very deeply now, and in a way that they didn't before. And I think sometimes when you get any kind of diagnosis or anything that happens in your life that represents a shift, it causes you to really stop and look inward and decide, what are the values, what's important to us, what is life all about, and what do I want to make of it? And so I think that has probably been the one thing for me and for my family that's changed the whole trajectory of the way we look at life.
So I'd imagine you're rebranding about a year ago.
Yep.
From Julie Gaver Training and Development,
right,
to Julie Gaver Discovery.
Discovery
has been a direct effect of life is not just about training and development. Life is about discovery.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
Was that a reason for the rebranding?
It was. It was. The rebranding was to celebrate the shift in going from strictly corporate training to kind of lifestyle and self-discovery, right, and all of the different facets that make up a person's life. Artistic.
Because with discovery, you can have training and development.
Yes, that's
right,
a big part of it.
Right.
But discovery also means, discovering yourself after a big change. Discovery means going and traveling to foreign lands and discovering what life is like for other people. Discovery can also be taking an art class, taking a writing class, and there's many of those types of things that I offer with the help of other people who are professionals. So discovery was a great word. I worked with a local business to come up with what that brand looked like. And I could articulate it, but I couldn't come up with the word. And when they came up with the word discovery, I'm like, that's it. So it's been an exciting year. It's just been a year now. Not even a year that we've started using that discovery word, but it kind of captures what everything's all about.
So Julie, where do you see yourself in 3 years and then in 10 years?
Well, 3 years, I will be firmly established here. I'll be really still working on developing some of the small groups that I want to do, very much expanding my nonprofit, Souls of Love in the Garden, which is held at my house. In 10 years, I will probably be retired from the training arena, but working full-time in my nonprofit. So I do work collecting shoes, new shoes for children in need.
Okay.
I host a large garden party. And it's called Souls of Love. And my educational background was in the nonprofit social work arena.
Okay.
So it's coming home.
Okay.
So in 10 years, I will be very fully entrenched in the nonprofit arena as long as I'm here.
Awesome. So how would our listeners, viewers, get a hold of you, learn more about you, buy one of your 3 books?
Right.
This is the time to.
Good.
This is the time to
This
promote
is
the
it.
product.
Ah,
Promote the
okay.
product here.
Okay, my website is a great way to start, and it's juliegaver.com, www.juliegaver.com.
GAVER.
Gaver. Phone number 301-293-4195. I'm very active on social media. So many of the people find me through Facebook. So look me up on Facebook, and I promote my events. You can find my books through there and just connect on another level. In fact, I'm sure that's how Linda and I have stayed connected as well.
Awesome. Listeners, viewers, I hope you enjoyed Julie's episode 166 as much as I did. Julie Gaver at Julie Gaver Discovery.
Yep.
And thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.